Yeah, yeah. MD, JPB. It's only right, baby.
Yeah, why you mad? I got a bag, bro. Name hot in these streets, no Tabasco. But I'm so stubbed, that's a fact, yo. And if you think I'm frontin', you can run it back, yo. Go on, run it back.
You know that I run it. Everything you wanna do, I already done it. And I got your little boo telling me she love me. I got this one, that one. Damn, it's gonna be a long night. Yeah. You know. I said, damn, it's gonna be a long night. Yeah, let's go. Look. I told Shorty drop it for a real one. Yeah. Go ahead and pop it, let me feel some. Do it for the boy with a bag now. Movie star money making everybody act out. I don't lie to these women, if I want them then I tell them. Don't get fly for these women, I was born with these propellers. All my haters cannot beat me, so I call them acapellas. See, I'm only getting better, you only get jealous. You know that I run it. Everything you wanna do, I already done it. And I got your little boo telling me she love me. I got this one, that one. Damn, it's gonna be a long night. You know, I got this one, that one. Damn, it's gonna be a long night. Yeah. MD, JPB. You already know, baby. Yeah. I said, I already done it. Everything you wanna do, I already. You know that yeah. I said, you know that yeah. Damn, it's gonna be a long night.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our PEN FPP Clan Wars League. This is week 4, and once again I'm joined by the very wonderful Highland with me tonight. How's it going, buddy? Hey, how are you?
Good. I'm doing good myself. We're back on the Miramar map here into the deserts for a week 4, and it's looking pretty spicy. We obviously saw last week the side of Empire of Lithuania take the first place over those 3 games, and it'd be interesting to see how Empire of Lithuania face up once again in this night's 3 games and see if they can repeat what they did last Sunday.
Yeah, we didn't have the biggest lobby tonight, but nonetheless, that shouldn't stop us from having some good action. We've got Xenotactics, Vini Vidi Vici, Incognito, EOL, once again, Waggles, Only the Best, ZPX Fear, AMZ Lions, and the 3 PEN teams. And talk to me about the playing path. What would you anticipate from this particular lobby with some knowledge, some data that we've got with the teams that we have in the league? Take it away, Highland Wolf.
Yeah, so obviously it's going to go over from Tierra Blanca, which is a little bit interesting one, over to Los Higos. It will be obviously on that eastern coastline for the deserts this first game. But interestingly enough, it's going to be now favouring the likes actually of those teams in Los Leones. So like Veni Vidi Vici and Only the Best, who are both in today. So that will be, as well as actually include PEN Game Over in Los Leones, and we see these teams starting to drop over on this major city, and that means that we're going to have a bit more of an early action than what we did last week, where we kind of just had 1 or 2 teams kind of skirmishing, fighting, and this will have a full-on bloodbath.
It seems like Veni Vidi Vici has changed up the drop locations a little bit, noticing that Campo Militar is not very contested in our league, so going over there to avoid some early action as well as looting up. AMZ Lions going to San Martin. PEN Institute taking Cruz de Val, like they used to have EOL contesting that same drop for a few weeks. Seems like that's not the case tonight. We've got Xenotactic heading over to Chumacera. A little bit of a congestion probably happening around the Minas Del Val or Valdemar area between ZPX Fear and actually PEN Misfits heading over to Los Higos, and doesn't stop us to have these little bit of congestion around Los Leones. Again, we didn't have the plane path over there last time, but this time we do, and we have got action already. Devious knocking one, and Thursday one as well.
We do see here will be game over here, taking that first blood over Only the Best. Clowning not having the greatest of starts here. He has gone down, and that will mean that it will be Only the Best to a 3-man versus a full squad of Game Over. Now, Game Over in this area didn't do so hot in the city last time, and you see actually help might need a little bit of aid here from Mr. Green, because like Mr. Professor getting knocked down, Andrex has done the exact same to help here. Mr. Green rightly gonna flush out Professor, deny the vision away from Andrex, but he will be giving, and help will be revived afterwards. Devious and Mumbles on the other side means it's gonna be that 2-2 split, and also that 1-1 split coming out from Only the Best means that they're going to need to regroup here. It does look like the side of PEN, because they have best numbers advantage, they have just... But as I say that, Andrex, with the Uzi for the long range, actually finds help again, and help will be forced back inside.
Speaking of that, Andrex using that high ground really well to find that cheeky angle onto the 2 players of PEN Game Over earlier, and does it again, but is gonna be very hard for him to get out of this because the rest of Game Over coming in for support, and Chazo may be pushing in towards the other 2 duos, and let's see how this plays out. It's gonna be 1v2 situation, and Andrex takes both Devious and Mumbles on his own with that strong Uzi in that early game doing work, and now this is 2v2 situation in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, but it still is Chazzo 1 versus 2. Helping Mr. Green are still alive, but Andrex is making the Uzi look like a long-range weapon here in Miramar. And Chazzo will go down, but Mr. Green instantly turned back around. And once again, a long-range Uzi knock. And that with help also going down means with Mr. Green, it will be Pen game over, eliminated in last position for his first game. Super surprising actually to see that a short-range weapon here, Tarzan, being used offensively from another building across the road to take out its enemies. And with that power, Andrex with 4 kills, wiping pretty much solo the entire squad.
I think we have a contestant for our Mofa Killer of the Night already. Endrex taking 4 kills in that. It's not only about the numbers, Highland Wolf, it's about him finding those cheeky angles, using that high ground, not giving too much footsteps when it matters, and just taking down Pen game over one by one. What a brilliant play from him.
Yeah, we see also if they are even close to the zone. And this zone, pretty interesting one for this first game. We will be going to that northeastern side, that north corner. And that means that some of these teams that have dropped all the way down on the side of Minister Val and Los Hicos, they're going to have a long walk into that zone. And they do have, because it is not as many teams here as we mentioned, a more clear route in. But perhaps not just now for the actually side of ZPX's Incognito once again from across their own road, and as they move across the map, have actually sniped down one of ZPX.
I was also able to catch some action over here around the Minas area. ZPX3 as the trio doing work right there, taking out 2 of Incognito, and then the remaining 2 will dip away. Pretty good retreat from there, so that allows them to continue the rest of the game as a duo. And we should probably talk about this Phase 1 circle, Highland Wolf. It's a pretty eastern plane path, so should the circle shift to the west side, we would know the dead west side of the map. Speaking of like El Pozo, who was in play last week, those places will be pretty open. But right now, this week's Phase 1 circle actually goes to the north side, okay, along where the plane path was. So a lot of these teams will sit very comfortably in there. So AMZ Lions are in the circle, EOL, Penn Institute, as well as VVV, although they dropped Campo Militar, they're not too far like from the circle themselves. So we've got a few more teams that need to make their way in, but there shouldn't be a huge problem. So this is the time to loot up, grab some cars, and yeah, let's see what action will we see tonight.
Yeah, and you see, actually, I was a little bit concerned there for Venivici dropping over in such a northern east corner of Camp Militar, but I think they have actually struck a little bit lucky here. Tarzan, they have, of course, received a good position on the zone here. They're on the edge. They're away from the majority of the teams. The next closest being Institute, but 2 realistically compounds away from them means that they got a lot of breathing room to even make it round that eastern coastline. If it does continue to shift further northeast, and they'll have a good position, maybe setting up around the Tierra Blanca Mountains, that would provide them the altitude that they need to catch these rotations from their enemies. But as you might really mention here, it is going to be these western side rotations coming out from a number of these teams. From, of course, Mortals, we've got Incognito and ZPXP are all making these rotations up to try get away perhaps through that northwestern side.
Exactly. It's still a very open circle for like a kind of a lower number of players of a lobby that can be expected. What I want to see here is for these teams who are already in the circle to take a position that they like, that they found powerful, or more importantly, based on, since it's a league system, they should study what their enemies are doing. So if they know that a team is dropping in a particular location and you think they will repeat, maybe if you've looted up, it's time to make that rotation that not only favors you for the predicted Phase 2 circle, but also to set up these choke points with the knowledge of their enemies. Seems like a lot of these teams are starting to make their early rotation. EOL is on the go. They didn't drop somewhere that is with a lot of compounds, a lot of loot, but they are pretty center, and yeah, there seems to be the most proactive team so far.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested in how Empire of Lithuania as well here are rotating Tarzan. You see, actually, maybe they come along the roadside in conflict between Penn Institute along that Cruz de Val highway, and maybe if they catch each other, that would be a core fight for both of these teams to try see which of them can take control of realistically the center of this zone. And it's weird to say, of course, it is the center of this zone, considering that it's so far northeastern side. And I think even the likes of Misfits, maybe they need to be a little bit faster in a rotation here, Tarzan. They might get left behind. We've seen it done a couple of times now by Penetrate teams, kind of falling behind the zones as they move in. And
Oh
they have
my
perhaps
God.
a good position. But EOL, there you see Penetrate will take down the side of EOL. Sorry, should I say actually Penetrate, will fall down to EOL there, excuse me, as they lose 3 members. And it's only God, so you see the car knock. That's how brutal these highway rotations can be in EOL. They are certainly back in form once again in week number 4.
That is exactly what you said, Highland move. I think that is also exactly what EOL plan to do. They know Penn Institute can and will drop around Cruz de Val. They've contested and fought them, both winning and losing in the past. So is a very heads-up play. They have definitely set that up, knowing that is the route for Penn Institute to go to the center zone. They have set that trap up exactly like they wanted, and it worked out perfectly. That is also that leads me to ask some questions as well, right? Like, not only do we need to have some flexibility in our tactics, not only maybe in so drop locations, rotation routes, but think about those early vehicles. There might be 2 in town. How about dropping on some vehicles, okay, around the town, or just like don't drop in the center of the city? So when you need to do this rotation, we can keep this formation with the abundance of vehicles. So when it comes to casualties, should we have any, you don't lose more than 1.
Yeah, and we see exactly just them paying the price for it. They're gonna now be that second team to fall in this game. And although we've not seen too much action here at Tarzan, it will go a little bit more faster paced as these teams make their way into the side of the zone. We see Misfits there now colliding with the side of ZPX, Fear on the edge, the southwestern edge, and you see Murdoch will be the first to fall to ZPX there as they take their first knock again in a vehicle.
It's good to see some difference in what Penn Misfits are trying to do here. They quite like dropping Minas Generalis, right? Like this time they went all the way, okay, to Los Higos, which is like realistically a very hard place to play and make it work. And but they have been rotating pretty early, so being able to run into a team here and optimizing and capitalizing on it is very good to know. But nonetheless, they are still quite far from the center circle. The phase 2 circle has popped. It's centered around El Arsa with all those hilly areas around Junkyard.
Yeah, it's a really difficult rotation here for these teams. Just really not letting up in this first game, forcing these teams to make those hard rotations up to that northeastern side. And Venivici looking pretty strong, as we say, can control those Tierra Bronca Mountains, as you see them doing so now. Maybe even moving down to the north side of Al-Azhar, take that high ground and catch teams, particularly like Empire of Lithuania are doing, moving in through that roadside between the valley into the compound and really mitigate the way that these teams can move around to the center of this zone as these teams start to approach the edge of phase 2.
Seems like Penn Misfits are not giving away these remaining 2 kills from ZPX Fear. Quesh only having bandages remaining. CJ has 1 first aid and maybe showing his position by smoking up that burning vehicle there. That should be a death crate of his teammate who got blown up by Murdoch. But he is dipping away in that burning buggy. Hopefully that will just be enough.
Yeah, of course, these many teams here still to make it in from that southwestern end of the map as it starts to close into phase 3 in about the next minute or two here. And then we will see these teams really put it out against each other. And you see, actually, I mentioned this position from EOL taking control of that valley. And AMZ, they look like they might have to be a little bit quick on their toes here, but actually going head first into the action. And you see the side of AMZ not scared right now. Psycho trying to take shots on Asmeskis as Asmeskis tries to get behind the hill, will survive. Barely, with a little sliver of health, gets under that ridge and will keep himself alive for now. But can he take down Psycho with such little health? That could be a vital first knock for AMZ.
Pretty big split between EOL here. They can cover different angles pretty well, but to have that joint firepower from AMZ Lions is pretty good. Speaking of that, Psycho getting knocked, Osmeskis being knocked as well. Providing some side cover, like fire from the other members of EOL here, but seems like they are going to get the revive. Osmeskis quite far from his teammates, so maybe not getting revived from that. Rebel getting the amazing knock on the member of EOL, which is Sippers, that has the off angle. But speaking of off angle, Aki also has one. He can do wonders here.
Yeah, will finish off as Meskis if they try to peek their head out, but they will fall themselves in time. Mentalis will look to try revive Zippers, and that's a smart decision here. Unfortunately, I do think that the side of EOL, Empire Lithuania, they're a little bit too split here into this hillside on the south of El Azahar. And so the result, they got punished for it by AMZ, who are more together as a team. But you see, it's not done yet. More teams looking to control this ridge side. It will be Wagles to take down AMZ Psycho. And now the tables have turned against AMZ. This is a 4 versus 3 situation in favor of Wagles.
Don't forget there is still the remaining duo of EOL sitting on that high ground there. This may mean that AMZ Lions should realistically reposition with their vehicles if they're still not damaged. They've still got two buses and a Dacia that they can use, so this will be the time to make that decisive move.
Yeah, so obviously the distance here with these vehicles, unfortunately, they didn't bring them all the way up to the top of the ridgeline. They took that final part of the fight against a side of Empires of Lithuania on foot, which meant that that bus there will be down on the edge of that hillside, and you see that edge being controlled by Star and Nagi here. And that means that this 2-2 split will stop AMZ taking that vehicle rotation, that they perhaps want to get out of a bad position between Empire of Lithuania from behind. You see Empire of Lithuania doing so when they try and make that move to get to the vehicles, Madro being knocked.
That's something that is really textbook. You can't forget that there is someone behind you. Calling out where the knocks are very important, right? To knowing that numbers advantage is one thing, knowing there's two up still by EOL through that fight, but knowing where they are also such an important information that allows them to reposition or just deploy that smoke preemptively. As we see here, Rebel not being able to find a ridge that they need. But speaking of that, the phase 3 circle has popped. It hovers over to the east side of El Arsa with a lot of mountains still in play. Looking at the minimap here, Team 21, which is ZPXV, actually got out of that skirmish alive. Penn Misfits knew better. Maybe that's a waste of time, so they decided to pull away. That would allow the rest of ZPXV to loot the remainder of Picardo to just get enough mets to survive towards this end game here.
And you see now Penn Misfits moving up behind Wagles themselves. All of these teams looking to control that strong high point in the center of this zone to the south and overlooking that center, should I say, over El Azahar. You see only the best and Benevici have taken their own respective positions in the zone. They'll take a quiet game here, but you see Wagles also heads up play. Because they had the high ground advantage and they had the vision over Misfits moving in, they actually say, well, look, we're going to move away from this mountainside, we're going to find our own position on maybe the north side of Azahar. And we're going to let AMZ, you guys, take control of both Misfits and EOL from two different sides.
Seems like Aki has found a knock on Penn Misfits, and they have done it. How many have they taken out? That is actually Murdoch returning fire with a slither of health, but the remainder of AMZ Lions not going to let this slip. Let me have a look. Yes, we have lost 2 on the side of Penn Misfits. Where is Deets Nuts? He may have a cheeky side angle. No, he's actually not. So it's only Murdoch up against 2 of AMZ Lions, and it might be 3 when Myro has gotten this revive on Aki.
Yeah, but obviously know that between these fights, Psycho had been knocked down, and that will mean, as you mentioned, that only 3 members for the side of AMZ. That means it's still potentially possible for Murdoch, but never mind. An excellent headshot takes care of that one, and Penn Misfits will be taken out by the side of AMZ Rebel there, finishing off the work and keeping their position on the northern side. But maybe short-lived here as another squad here takes charge of his southern end. Xenomortals now looking to try take control. They hear the gunfire, but not quite on the mountainside just yet. They're going to take a little bit of a positioning on the edge, away from the firefight that has gone on the southern end. Instead, it's going to be the north, where we see Waggles now attacking Benevici on this hard flank rotation.
I love what Waggles did there. They know that entrance point towards El Azhar was choked out due to that earlier pressure and congestion that they faced pulling up towards AMZ Lions. So they did a very textbook clockwise wide rotation to bring themselves to this north end, which usually shouldn't have a team there, but Benevici taking that Campo Militar drop this time around allowed them a very early rotation to take this good high ground position.
Yeah, you see there as well the side of AMZ doing more work against the enemies here, keeping their right on to live on this mountainside here. Rebel was knocked, but a Aki smoke road here will make sure that they will be revived in time as they take out the entire side of Xenomortals on the ridge side, moving into the zone here. They will be engulfed by that phase 3, but it's not going to do so much damage just yet. They will be able to control that El Azhar compound, but keep in mind, we can't forget about the side of EOL here. Empire of Lithuania controlling that ridgeline will give them a good way to get now into this phase 4 zone, which again is brutal here, Tarzan, as it moves all the way into the outer distance of Miramar along the outer wall here on the northeastern side.
That is absolutely mental. I think I haven't seen such a brutal Phase 4 circle in a long time. There is so few hard covers that teams can use, but this is the time to show their skill and knowledge of the game, when to rotate and how, whether they have the vehicles, whether they have the meds and smokes. This is the time to show it. We've got 1 minute, just over a minute still. These teams have to move in if they want to take an advantageous position to choke these other teams out.
It's an interesting rotation here on the side of Waggles there. They're trying to take potentially that Wistar flank rotation into the zone here. Maybe sending that scout there to try catch a position into the zone, while the rest of the teams try to maybe gatekeep Benevici off this mountainside, and also keep an eye on Incognito who are moving in. It's a race to see which team can get that few places of cover first under control, under lockdown, because you see the South End is already taken by 2 teams. Only that more open north side is available for the rest of these squads.
Yep. Very good retreat here from Incognito. They took that same clockwise white rotation as Waggles, but they saw them and they decided just to pull away. They got shot and spotted by Benevici there, but they were quick enough and heads up enough with their rotation, so they've now actually taken one of the very few hard covers that they can get in this phase 4 circle.
And obviously keep in mind, because this zone is actually, it's like almost an ocean zone here, Tarzan. Because it's covering so much in the wall, it's actually realistically more like a phase 6, phase 7 zone right now. And you see these teams really struggling to find a position inside of it. AMZ Rebel has been knocked, and Aki will, I assume, try and keep their position in that little shack there. Try reposition maybe, but you see them already under fire by Benevici. There's nowhere for AMZ to go. I think they might have finally found their match on an enemy team here, and it will be between Wales and Benevici to who can take them out.
Unfortunately, Aki wasn't able to provide that covering fire to stop his teammates from being confirmed and thirsted. This type of game, right, Highland Wolf, since it's so rare for circles to end here, it really counts on the ability of these teams. What is going on? What have you seen?
What is this zone? Just don't look at the zone right now, Tarzan. I don't think this zone, literally in phase 5, he's not even got a play area inside of it, Tarzan. This is now a fight to see who has the medkits, who can do the most damage to survive the longest. Because this zone, once it closes in, 1 minute 30, this will be the final zone for these teams. There is nowhere for these squads to hide anymore.
And look at this high hill area as well. You can't even drive up there, and that is just absolutely mental. So if teams need to rotate now and not have Papa Blue to do all the damage to end this game, they have to move now. There is still one piece of hard cover, by the way, which is that airdrop that has landed on the south edge of that Nick circle, but we've got 1 minute to go before this phase 5 is going to close. Look at this chaos right here. None of these teams are in the circle, and they are just on this side of this west side of this huge hill. ZPX Fear, CJ driving into the middle of 3 teams there. That might be the mofo killer of mofo bot of the night. Actually, have you got your headphones on, mate? I am not sure. Let's have a look.
Certainly forgetting that there's teams all around him. And of course, you see that Wagles there do find one knock. They are in the open here with Benevici in their cover. Makes it much better position for them to try survive just a little bit longer. But keep in mind the way that this zone is actually facing. They might be, because of the way this zone is, engulfed actually quicker by that blue zone than the rest of these squads. So it might actually end up that Benevici may need to move along that ridge line, along the wall, to try contest Incognito in that shack and try find position. Here Wakels, they have repositioned themselves right along the wall side there, along that angle. May take down Andrex, looking to maybe take down Chazo as well. There is just nowhere for these teams to survive, and it's going to chew through the members of these remaining players.
Look at this absolute chaos happening. This is usually very hard to know when you should do the run and gun technique.
There it goes.
Or just prioritize rotation. Seems like they've got no choice here. They've only just realized that they can't go straight in the circle. Boys, this is the lesson. This is the lesson. OTB, Chazo knocking down one of Waggles. Probably that will be the whole team gone. OTB also took down... this is going to be such a weird thing to cast right now. Vidma still up.
And you see Vidma here trying to out-survive the side of Benevici here against 4 members. Because they might be trying to heal all 4 members, it will mean they do have enough medkits. I wondered if they would or would not versus Incognito, but they do out-heal in the final zone there for Miramar, the side of Incognito, taking that first chicken dinner. A very unusual zone. Certainly never had that before in Miramar, but I think that might be one of the weirdest zones I've ever had to cast.
That is just absolutely crazy, but I think it only takes one thing, right, Highland Wolf, is just to drive and think. If you think, the first thing when the zone pops, right, is to think, how do I get in? right? Which is the strong spot in the circle? Okay, if that thought came 2 steps earlier, then you would have realized earlier that that is not such an easy rotation to make. Then this type of chaos wouldn't have happened. Veni Vidi Vici taking the win with actually 1 kill. They were able to stay on that top right of the map all game, and so that I would love to see them capitalize on that position a bit more. Incognito, nonetheless, making the early rotation might be the reason why, for them to still have those little bits of meds to get through that chaotic fight to bring them a second place. So they've got a full team, 2 down early, but the placement points would really count here.
Yeah, and you see, of course, Owner the Best here taking 3rd position with 7 kills. Wagles in 4th position with 5 kills. Empire of Lithuania with 5 kills in 5th position. Sorry, ZPX Viet with 2 kills in 6th. The side of AMZ Lions will be in 7th position with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kills. It will be the side of Zen Mortals, I do believe, in 8th position there with 0 kills. 9th position will be the side of Institute. 10th position will be the side of Penetrate. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm fumbling this one. Penetrate Misfits, and Misfits in 9th position. Institute in 10th position, excuse me, and 11th position will be game over.
I was going to help you there, but it's good training.
It's okay. Well. I've got it covered. I remembered the usernames.
Yeah. Thank you for those who tune into the chat and the stream. So that is such a crazy game one. We'll take a short break, and we will see you all on Erangel. The wait is over. Welcome back to Game 2 of FPP Clan Wars League, Week 4. Have we got Highland with There We Go?
You do. I know. I was wondering, is he gonna say it anymore? But you know, we just had it off a absolutely crazy game number 1. I mean, honestly, what a ridiculous game to have it end almost prematurely, I would say, in terms of being only phase 5 and the way it ended. I'm not going to spoil it because it's so epic, and I think you guys should check it out, of course, if you missed it. But either way, we're coming off of the desert dunes of Miramar and onto, as Maxman would say, the green pastures of Erangel. And we're going to have another playing path here, which kind of favors one side. This time it's going to be the south end, which will be from Primorsk to Milta Tower. And it will be favoring, now for this game number 2, these teams that like to drop over the farm Milta area. Even teams, which I'm personally a fan of, teams that like to drop over in the Southern African military base, which for me, looking at Pen Game Over potentially being one of those teams to do so, would be what I want to see. We see, obviously, teams like side of AMZ Lions that often favor Yasnaya. They're going to have a harder time because now they need to rethink where they want to drop.
I'm seeing a bit of a new drop choice here by Only the Best, contesting Penn Institute over the east side, the west side of Quarry, I'm sorry, and Venividi Vici actually claiming Primos to themselves. What I would like to see here is actually AMZ Lions, who very much like the Yasnaya area, but that's too far for them to go right now. So let's see what they do. Seems like they're heading towards the Milta area, and as you said as well, Highland Wolf, Penn Game Over is just comfortably taking their military base, their usual drop right now. Weggle's taking Pachinki, and 3 teams right now, EOL, ZPX Fear, and Xeno Tactic heading towards the north side, but as far as they want to, that it can only go as far as mentioned. But there's some shots going off already over this side. Maybe it's a misfire from VVV right there. But where do you think the first fight will happen, Highland Wolf?
For me personally, looking at just the way this zone has popped as well over to that western end, I think we most likely are going to see a fight break out between ZPX and potentially around that prison area, and maybe actually catching out the side of Zippers, because we see actually an interesting split drop from the side of Empire of Lithuania. This oftentimes is done to get more loot quicker, to rotate quicker into a zone, if, as they have had happen to them, if they need to get into the zone quite quickly. But as a result, it can cost you a member or two moving into the zone earlier on if they get caught out alone. And you see that could potentially be the case. I'm also interested to look along the other end of the map, though, potentially around the Penn Institute versus Only the Best fight that could happen. Only the Best taking control of that western beachfront. And you see, as usual, the side of Penn taking that 4x1 split around the western side of Quarry. And we're going to potentially group up together and maybe look for a position towards maybe Gattaca Fields around the center of this zone.
I'm looking forward to some fight over this west coast as well, Highland Wolf. Since Penn Institute really like this location of the map, and having OTB drop quite close to them, they should be able to tell that there are some congestion and contest around that side. So these early rotations made by these two teams, the knowledge of the choke points around this area can very well be the early action that we will see. But speaking of that, Only the Best actually going up north along that west main road, and Penn Institute still looting up, and it will be a pretty busy zone here, an area over Potato Hill and the east edge of the circle, because there's, like we said and like we saw, 5 teams around this like farm to Milter mansion area. So we'll look forward to how these teams rotate in. Will they take a wide rotation anti-clockwise to get to the more ruins Georgiaport area? That can be an option. And so yeah, that driving and scouting work will be very important. It's also going to be very interesting to see what Penn Misfits are going to do here. They are over at Novo, so whether they want to, so what they need to do, right, to get into the zone is to first go north, then go west, or the other way around. We can go west and then cross the west bridge of the military base. In that case, if they opt for the latter, they may run into Penn game over there. So yes, seems like there's some action breaking, and we've got Zippers already taking 1 kill, taking down one of the 3 members of ZPX Sphere.
It'll be the reverse of what I thought. Actually, EOL will be the ones to strike first in this game. As you mentioned, Zippers taking up 1 kill over CJ. A very quick knock, decisive there, denying ZPX Sphere the opportunity to come as a free man and take that revive, just taking advantage of what was a 2-1 split there and regrouping back with their team for, as I expect, maybe a northern rotation around the north end of Yasnaya Polyana to Roshawk into the zone from there. We often actually, I was debating actually to see if Only the Best would go around Everest, take a northern rotation for an early position there and loot up once again, but they have gone aggressive as we predicted here. They will be actually met with dire from the side of Godsu there, will take the first knock onto Charzo, and that will put him at a disadvantage, maybe regretting a decision as Andrex now left 3 versus 1.
OTB actually came back to this area here to fight Penn Institute. They're taking multiple angles and they were still a little bit split, and then Omen getting punished. So 1 down there, seems like that will be the flush as well. The rest of Penn Institute actually coming in to support Gotsu there and taking down the other member of OTB, and it's now a 2v3 situation. If I were OTB, that may be the time to just pull away, but it's such a huge zone, and there's so many terrains around this area of Erangel that they can still use to maybe punish Penn Institute for taking 2 of their players away.
You see Godsu looking for the first to get a 3rd kill against only the best, but they won't be able to do so. There are vehicles now being met by the side of only the best. They will drive away, and they will try, as now I expect to get more of a northern position in the zone. A very quick rotation as well coming out from the side of Game Over, already off with Southern African Military Island, taking control of that central position around Gaffer Fields, and that will be key for them. They will take control over the small cut a series of buildings in the center of the field area, which will provide a cover around a very flat and open zone. Keep this in mind that although this is only phase 1, Tarzan, this is very open around the center, and you expect, because that is the center of the zone, teams are going to be looking to try find a maneuvering angle to get as close as possible to those fields.
Look at this crazy action here. Myro and her teammates of ANZ Lions actually chasing after Incognito, who they've spotted, and they have taken 1 with them. And this east side, as we predicted, Highland Wolf, is going to be quite action-packed. Seems like none of these teams gone for anything of what we call a wide rotation, and then EOL here finding the remainder of ZPX Sphere, finding them in that look at that BMDR on the top of that prison main building there. I haven't seen a better way or the more foolish way to show where you are, and EOL will definitely not let these 2 kill points go, and seems like they can be a goner the remainder of ZPX Sphere. They really need to clutch this out. Unfortunately, the BMDR there is not going to be the reason that they get out of this alive, but nonetheless, we've got only 4 seconds still, okay, or the phase 1 circle is actually closing soon, so knowing when to pull away will also be very important. But here we've got Osmeskis actually pushing in now.
Yeah, I would like Mentalis here to be a little bit closer for Osmeskis to provide that support. You see Osmeskis now making their way up the stairs. They're looking to try take a little bit of an angle against Kavesh, but Kavesh has started to fire down upon him, and Osmeskis will wait for the rest of the team. Rightly so, they will bait out that kill for Calypso there, and it will be finished off, but Osmeskis will have to come down the stairs looking to try find that first in return for ZPX Sphere. Osmeskis going back up the stairs, trying to find snipes, goes crouched down and will find the kills, will find the shots before they get taken out, and that will be the rest of ZPX Sphere finished off in this early stage. And I like that they were decisive there to finally, just as you mentioned, get rid of this enemy's duo and get their way into zone, because as you see, this zone is now starting to be occupied around the eastern side. These areas like Potato Hill, like Pachinki, like even potentially School could be taken by Misfits, as you see them rotating a little bit further north side too.
And we have seen Penn Misfits actually crossing the Novo Bridge before going west again into the circle. I'm still waiting for some of these teams, especially if they are low on resources still. They can still opt in for this wide rotation anti-clockwise to get into both the North Georgia and South Georgia area, and can still make use of that high ground provided by Mount Everest.
Yeah, I'm surprised that teams haven't taken that up. I would think that, you know, as I mentioned, only the best had a really good opportunity to take the side of Everest really early on, and even being so early to that rotation, loot up and have that time to loot up Hospital and around Georgia Pole area. That would have provided them so much in terms of capability to have the medkits, to have the firepower, to have the right guns they want, to take control of such a high ground, to have those long range and weapons in their arsenal to take control of. But you do see now that area is also being occupied by the side of Xenomortals, and as a result, it will be harder for them to take control of this high ground area. And around that, to the south, now being occupied by Penetrate, Game Over, Wiggles, and also Institute.
Look at this. It's just Christmas, guys. Early Christmas is here for Penn. Game over. Like you said, I like seeing them making an earlier phase 1 rotation to the center position. They take up this main Gaka area, but maybe this is the definition of boosted loot. Six airdrops around this compound that they claimed. If they fail and didn't win this game with this abundance of resources, I'd be really disappointed. But speaking of that, we've got the Nick Circle popped, and a lot of these power positions around Pachinki Hill, Hospital, Everest, also the cheeky bits around Ruins are still in play. So Veni Vidi Vici really need to move away from Primos now. They are not the team that, based on my knowledge, to love taking these early rotations, but that is about time. Primos can only be so big, so this is the time to rotate. And a little bit of congestion here, then we should definitely bring our camps over to around Potato Hill. The action between Penn Misfits and EOL right here. Menace being knocked, but seems like Murdoch will take the revive.
Not a good position for EOL to be in. Zippers is already knocked. Calypso Mentalis trying to strafe left and right, dodging the grenades for Zippers, looking to be bursted down. But these nuts will fall down to Vidma from Incognito. From the other end of this fight, way in the distance, they get the snipe out, and that might provide some respite for the side of EOL now to group up 3 members as Meskis has joined them. Vish now in a nasty 1-versus-3 situation with Zipper's going to be revived. The smoke screen also going out to try block some of the vision, and Vish will take this opportunity to try revive these nuts, and that is the best thing to do. They need to make this a 2-versus-2 situation. Menace and Murdoch also need to be keeping an eye out for Incognito a little bit more themselves as well. They could now be keeping an eye for the side of Incognito while Vish and these nuts look over towards EOL directly in front of him. Was Meskis, they have made that 1-versus-3 kind of flank there, with Mentalis making it a 2-2 split, and that could be now this matched rotation. It will be whoever fires first.
EOL is now pushing in. Seems like both teams, both them and Dependent, were able to get their reset, but here we see EOL actually pushing down towards where Fish and these nuts are. Maybe the smokes are giving the position away, and now we see actually Vish going down, flushed as well, and so it's these nuts against the many members of EOL. But don't forget there's Incognitos who had angles on him, who took him down at the first place. Now he's just using these new bits here that are very strong in Irangu 2.0, but that will be his saving grace maybe. You will still need to really clutch that out, buddy.
Yeah, you see that high ground, and usually did find that one kind of pick for the side of EOL against Misfits, but also on the other end, you do see all of this juicy loot being used to its effect as you see the side of Game Over obliterate away Veni Vidi Vici. They say, you have some loot, you have some loot, you have some loot to their teammates, and then they say, welcome enemy teams, we will delete you now from Christmas. We will delete you away from this game. And you see now EOL also taking control on the other end, though, over the side of Misfits, as you see Murdoch split, Menace split away from these nuts, and these nuts really in a tricky, dire position right now, 1-versus-3.
Murdoch was able to take out the guy with the off angle, which was Osmescus, I believe, so that's pretty good work there. And so yeah, just need to see how Deesna's using the very strong Molotov now with that buff. He can maybe hold this off and just like stop and restrict the movements coming out from the 2 members on the side of EOL, and using this terrain, slowly sneaking up. Incognito rotating away now, so he should be okay from the back, but what can they do here?
You see now them regrouping up. Unfortunately, as you do mention, they lost Mentalis early on with that flank rotation. I think it would be respectful for both of these teams to kind of agree that they've got one knock and try find a better position in this zone. You see it is about to close in shortly. into now phase number 3, and that will be time for these teams to try find a little bit of a closer position. They've been on Potato Hill for a couple minutes now, and they want, as you see, EOL, they're making a more central position for themselves, trying to actually potentially even gatekeep away the side of Penetrate Misfits, who were at that point just a few moments ago gatekeeping EOL.
Really like what EOL's doing here, knowing their limits, knowing that staying at the same position to have this drawn out fight might not be in their interest. So now taking over this area to the northwest of Pachinki is what they are doing, and that should be a better call, leaving Pen Misfits still on that east edge, one step behind the rest of the teams who want to take a more center position. But Highland Wolf, we've been talking about this. We've got a date last night, right? When we hang out over like the analysis of PUBG or the mistakes that we see from these teams. I just really need to say it. Veni Vidi Vici, what was happening? You had all the time to loot. There's an abundance of vehicles around Primorsk and the Ferropier area. And how do you get blown up going into Gatka, especially when there are enough high grounds around the main bit of Gatka for you to scout? So did we drive in one vehicle? I didn't see that, I'm sorry, but that seems like a bit too quick of a blow up and death of a squad wipe.
I tell you what happened, Tarzan. It was Christmas. It was Santa who came into Game Over and said, have all the AWMs, have all the tier 3 armor, helmets, whatever you need. I will give it to you. And they just smashed through the side of NAVDV2 with their loot earlier on here. No amount of loot is going to prepare yourself against 6 airdrops there for the side of Game Over. Ridiculous turnout for them. And I would be surprised, considering their position in this zone as well, if they don't get a much better result than in Game 1. But directly in front of them, an interesting position from Institute, taking control of the dips here along Gatka Fields for themselves. And I think this is interesting because they're going to be able to hear these vehicle rotations coming in, but they're also going to be hidden, and they're going to have that low ground peak advantage over some of these enemy teams moving in. They have options as well by moving through that gutter as well to get around Gatka Fields and reposition if need be as well.
Seems like they are spotted. This chopsticks area is very common, popular in higher tier scrims and actually PMGC, like on the world stage. The problem is this is FPP, so it takes away a lot of that advantage that you can get from a TPP peak. But seems like the two Pen teams, so Pen Game Over and Institute, have found each other, so they know that they are in the chopsticks area and they spot them on the main Gatka compounds as well. So they should not allow each other to move very easily. And here we see actually Pen Institute moving out of the chopsticks area for a bit of a better hard cover.
You see also Wales there. They do control the little bit of a compound ahead. It will be tricky, I think, to penetrate, but they do look like they're going to control the opposite end of the road. I think they will rightfully also stay in this trio of buildings for now and hope that that zone will centralize around them. They don't need to move realistically anywhere just yet. They can keep their position, and they can actually allow, if the zone forces Wagles, to come up against them instead. None of these teams are going to want to really be the ones to aggress in such an open final zone here around the center of the map. You do see on the northern side, though, only the best in AMZ maybe fight together around the ruins area. It's interesting, AMZ have actually taken more of that northern rotation. They could potentially take advantage of previously weakened only the best.
I really want to talk about this circle here. The time to maybe show a little bit of what I know, Highland Wolf. I know we had that date yesterday, and you had a bit of a glimpse into how my brain works. I don't know whether you like it, but I'm
brain
gonna
is crazy, man.
Let's talk about the circle right here. Okay, I want to draw all your attention to where Pen Game Over is, where Incognito is, as well as Penn Misfits. So they are on the edge position. Okay, so let's just pick some. I'm going to keep my screen on this minimap here. Okay, pick a next circle, right? All these lovely viewers that you've tuned in tonight, just pick any, okay? If you're on this edge and you thought you are safe, when a shift like that happens, you will be one of the latest teams to get into the zone. So that is why a lot of these teams, for example, Waggles, okay, EOL, Penn Institute, take a bit of an earlier center position. So even when a hard shift like this happens, they can be one of the earliest teams to go into circle. They can pick to do a split to take center positions as well as gatekeeping, or they can just full send their team to the center. Is up to them, but it provides them with that window to enter when there are still options. EOL, speaking of that, when the three teams I mentioned are still exactly where they were, EOL is already taking the dead center of this phase 4 circle.
Oh, baby, we're going to Headshot Valley for game number 2, Tarzan, and it's getting exciting. I love these zones so far. So mean, so cheeky of zones in Phase 4, Phase 5 for these teams to try deal with. And you see them already have clustered up around that western side. Penn Institute making a very quick, desperate rotation around to the northern side, escaping Zen, Xenomortals, and also AMZ Lions going in to try finish off their earlier work against only the best. They found you again, OTB, Clownin, and decide, oh, Professor, you better be careful. You better be able to pull off this 2 versus 4 because they're surrounding you like sharks.
They have taken this very strong spot over Ruins with a little bit of high ground. Didn't take the best spot in my opinion. So that is now actually taken by Penn Institute. These two teams are not giving each other a break this game. You know what I think, Highland Wolf? I think OTB need to work on the trigger discipline for this particular skirmish that just happened. If you can't punish a team that's rotating like that, then you just completely expose yourself to this area over here. So since they're both still on the north edge, on the next rotation, even if they fight, okay, that will mean they will burn down the resources, but the team that can find the best route and the cleverer way to rotate from here will mean that they can take the other team down. Speaking of that, Griff is getting knocked, but seems like it's going to be too far for OTB to confirm this kill.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is some cover, but I do also want to mention, being a Ruins finish here, there is cover to some extent, but realistically, these teams can reposition here Tarzan to any location to take another angle to confirm a kill, to get a knock. There's no real hard cover that will protect you from a majority of angles here in Ruins. It's so open and so difficult to try reposition around so many teams going to be moving in here. So you say 9 teams still alive in this game, moving into the Headshot Valley area, and dips back down once again to the south, and will now force these teams like OTP, like Institute, to make that really difficult rotation now into the side of Incognito, as they will revive Bezovius and maybe have a little bit of a stronger positioning to gatekeep these two squads.
Look at this crazy Nick circle. As we thought, these teams we put to the test because it's a south shift. It's in such a good position here, allowing them to use that new bits of Durango 2.0 around Ruins to just hold these teams on both sides. Incognito being knocked from behind by OTB. OTB fighting Penn Institute at the same time. Both of those fights have now been reset. But look at this congestion here over this northwest edge. Is completely chaos.
These zones are just something else here, Tarzan, for these teams to deal with. I don't think these kind of smaller lobby of players were really expecting such a difficult series of games here. If it's going to be like this in Sanhok, goodness help these squads to try to deal with such difficult moves from these zones. You see Penn Griff will be that scout for Institute to be sent into the zone against the full squad, bless them, of Game Over, who are now rotating in with those 6 crates of loot to try contest against the 1 versus 4 Griff. gonna be, unfortunately, not. There's not really much he can do. He will be taken out finally by Game Over and will be confirmed. You see in the center as well, Incognito losing one. You see Xenomortals losing one themselves in the center to Waggles. These teams really congested on that northwestern front.
Griff having the right idea to get an entry point for his team there, but sometimes when you get to the edge, especially for a circle like this, you don't want to go too far. But there he was cruising across the whole of the north edge all the way towards Penn Game Over, and he got punished heavily for that. Now Penn Institute has lost their anchorage point, and we've got other fights breaking through still. EOL now gatekeeping the remaining two members of Incognito, very silently looking through. The Incognito is still out, but they know there will be resistance. How are they going to play this out is my question.
This is going to be difficult because EOL, they have to gatekeep Penn, they have to gatekeep Incognito, they have to gatekeep AMZ Lions. You see Waggles will do work for against the side of Lions. Lions also returning one onto Nike to try to provide some time with so many smokes being used to keep them in the game. Unfortunately, Penetrate Institute, they could not deal with that phase 5 zone. I don't think Incognito Guard will be able to either. Such a strong position from Empire Lithuania to take control of that tiered kind of dip there on the mountainside to be protected from AMZ and Waggles, but also to deal with teams moving in from the northern side. Waggles, they do control a very, very, very strong position in this center of zone. The only team inside a compound as well. But don't forget the actual side of this upset player. It could be Syed that can upset side of Waggles and provide an opportunity for squads like AMZ to make a move into the zone here to try and contest these compounds.
This zone is definitely blessing Waggles right now, but they are still being breached. Is that Myra with the AWM doing work right there? But meanwhile, we are still having this fight between EOL and Penn Game Over on the north edge. Both of these teams not giving each other a chance to go in there. And this is going to be just quite an interesting fight. Maybe, okay, we can actually see AMZ Lions breaching and getting into the circle, now breaching the compound held by Waggles.
You see actually this 2-2 split from the side of Penetrate Game Over, but they do have to move away from that dip. Devious and Mr. Green, they're going to be met by the full duo here of EOL, but they will potentially get this double knock. Yes, they will. They're going to look for this first. EOL were forced into this rotation, and they were just a little bit too slow. Didn't quite catch Devious and Mr. Green from behind the hill. Mr. Green will fall down. Syed will be that upset to stop Devious getting inside a building here inside the zone. There's no real help for the rest of the team, and with those other two members caught in the blue zone, it will be Game Over eliminated. 3 teams remaining. Dreamer will be knocked. Here comes AMZ's oppression here into the final series of buildings, into the final fight versus Waggles. Syed still alive though. It will be another knock onto Rhodey. Psycho barely living with a sliver of health. Rebel and Matro still alive, trying to take down the final 2 members. Start and Rudy there going behind the building, trying to revive their third teammate. Psycho trying to provide a little bit of pressure, try to stop this revive in his tracks. Psycho will not be knocked just quite yet. They will survive with 1 HP. Nagi, Rhodey will be knocked. Star trying desperately to lay down, put out the fire, but won't be able to manage it. Syed still alive, still second position from all of these other squads, and with 1 member down, it will be a revival. It will be a reset now for AMZ. Syed now has to pull off the Miracle 1 versus 3. Can Xenomortal steal it away? Matro trying to peek around the side. Syed has been found. They know exactly which building they're inside here. Tarzan. Matro will be going one side. Psycho. Rebel from another. Psycho will find it. And Xenomortals, they stood no chance, unfortunately. They were eliminated, and that will be them in second place. It will be that chicken dinner stolen by AMZ Lions.
AMZ Lions with the good 10 kill chicken dinner here, although they've lost a player slightly earlier. This push into this, what we used to call the yellows, right, of this Headshot Valley really worked out for them, breaching that compound with no problem. Psycho doing that work as well, facing that double peak but still making it count, and living with a slither of health really made that count. But EOL here having an 11 kill game, and Pen game over what was probably the biggest resistance they faced going into that zone. But here is one question, Highland, especially for a zone like that. Before that close, I know Pen game over had so much time to rotate and pick up all the vehicles that they could earlier. They had wide rotation. They also been given the vehicles of Vini Vidi Vici. So into that second last circle, right, we've got so much terrains to park these cars. Same for EOL going into the very strong bits of ruins, although there are teams around, but there's enough parking spots for them. Those are the very much overlooked resources that could have just saved them there. You can leave one guy behind as the spoiler, there's no problem, that they need an escape strategy. So this is my question for a lot of these teams. Of course I've mentioned EOL and Pain Game Over, but where the hell were your cars?
Yeah, and I think it was actually the side of AMZ were actually the real spoiler of this game. Penetrate Game Over is a little bit questionable with their positioning towards the end. I liked their early rotations, but later on, Tarzan, unfortunately, two members being so far behind in a phase 5 zone effectively made that squad only a duo of Devious and Mr. Green up front there behind the hill, behind that small dip to try and make that rotation in. But Waggles, they only need to deal with 2 players. The zone will deal with the rest. And as a result, it makes it way easier to gatekeep both them and also the side of EOL, who are actually taken out, of course, by Game Over themselves. So being done the work for Waggles. But AMZ, they smartly take a rotation from behind while this fight is going on, while this fire being put onto Game Over, using the kill feed to their advantage to get behind with all the smokes you saw they had in their pockets to get an access to the back door behind Waggles and really pressure them when they were starting to be hurt by these other teams moving from the other end.
I also want to talk very briefly about the position that Penn Institute took. It's for an earlier phase, right? There's a very strong bit around ruins, but if it's already on the edge, that is one of the worst spots to take, actually, because there's very few options to rotate. So the escape strategies are very limited. We've got only the best, on if they want to do anti-clockwise rotation. Right? If we want to do clockwise, that's the scary bits of hill that's already claimed. So maybe we need to take 2 steps back to see what compounds to take. Think about what you may have to do to get out of that afterwards. Because there, with Griff going that clockwise rotation to scout, that being choked, they know if they go straight in, they've got the other teams. If they go anti-clockwise, there is OTB. So if I were still playing with them and leading them, maybe I would just say, let's fight OTB to open up that alternative route to rotate anti-clockwise. Although there are still other teams there, but that will definitely still be better than running straight in up into just the hands of EOL there. Right, that is enough said. That is a lot of the essence of our work, right, Highland Wolf? That brain at work, right there. Right, so we really need that break now. We'll see you all on Sanok. Welcome back, everyone, to our game 3, which will be Sanok. Highland Wolf, how are you? Hanging strong still?
I'm just sipping my coffee. I'm finishing it off. Unfortunately, I'm out, so I'm a little bit of a sad doggo right now for game number 3. But you know, I think I'll manage. But I tell you what, I won't manage with is if we see another just absolutely insane zone for game number 3. Honestly, these zones you would expect at a PMGC level if the zones had a difficulty rating. These zones are so difficult. I think for Miramar, just the way it ended so abruptly for these teams, having to think so fast on your feet. Game number 2 being such a difficult location that it ended on, and now going into game number 3, it looks like it's going to be to one side again, the plane path, and from the north side. This time over from Camp Alpha to Mong Nai. And that obviously will feature, of course, these teams that love to drop over on the side of Hatin, Tap Mok Khao, where we kind of see that even the side of Penn Institute often take around Hatin area, Hartan Bridge. And actually with Incognito, who also drop a little bit to the west of that, it'll be good for them to try set up a position early on and try move out from there. But without the zone, without knowing where it is, we could expect it could be a southern zone. So I can't, for now, say exactly how they'll rotate out. They might just be able to stay where they are. I will be looking more for these teams that are centralized in their positioning, like often we see AMZ in Paradise Resort being their comfort position.
A bit of a change of drop location here by Vinny Vici. Maybe Camp Charlie wasn't the favorite after 2 weeks of being cleared and wiped by OTB very early, but they now face another supposedly strong squad, right? Because Penn Institute took last season's win, but let's see how this early Hartin action will roll out.
This is a result of that plane path there, Tarzan. Being so northern, Camp Charlie isn't on the board for them. They're not wanting to risk potentially the southern end because we know that Penn Game Over and Penn Misfits also drop nowadays over towards that southern end of the map in Sandhawk here. And that will result in them actually trying to take this early game fight, which I think they should be more looking to do as quick as possible. It is actually what you see them doing, taking down Godsu. Because Sauron is so far away, it makes it effectively a 3 versus 4 beginning. And now that Godsu is also not a 2 versus 4 situation, I want to see the rest of Venividi Vici, like Chris and Pish, move up to try flank behind Institute and pincer them from 2 different angles.
This is also a very volatile situation. Based on Sauron's position right now, he can be a game changer, like for this fight over at Hartin, but we can't forget Incognito is also very close to Hartin on the west side of it, so that can also provide a lot of versatility to how this can roll out. VVV actually pulling quite close now. Caesar and Plateau in the same building. Plateau getting knocked by Griff. Good angle by Griff there, but they're very clumped up. Sauron is actually now coming into Hartin for the off angle. Chris holding an off angle as well. And Guard on the west side just comfortably sitting there, patiently waiting. Not sure whether he's picked up any of those gunshots yet.
Yeah, you see Penetrate Sauron trying to make tentatively a position round towards Griff, towards the rest of his team. With Plateau, Cesar, Pish, they are moving through the buildings. They've got Chris there on the flank side to deny Sauron's rotation away, which is very smart of them. With this 2-1-1 split, you see also 2-1-1 split here from Penetrate Institute. Godsu and Omen, who is back up there as well, trying to make that happen with this 2 versus 1 situation. But Pish finds it, 2 versus 1, finds the first as well. Godsu will be all alone on this side to himself. And with Plateau there now as well. It's difficult. Potentially Gotsu manages to evade the shots there to get back into the wall across that little bit of a gap between the two buildings there, between the two walls. So they will regroup. They will be now this 3 versus 4 situation. And this triangle formation really coming out from Penetrate Institute with the 2 front lines, the 1 back line there for the long range to try catch these teams, Benevidivici, and also potentially, as you mentioned, Incognito from behind, now joining into the fray.
It's a very scary situation for Penn Institute here. But Guard pulling quite close to this warehouse here, probably giving the footsteps for Sauron to pick up. Looking forward to see what the IGL for tonight of Penn Institute will do to hold off this 3-way fight. But there we go, such a beautiful nade by Sauron. But he has to be careful pushing out there since we just need more cover fire. Gotsu being knocked as well, Guard very low, Sauron just behind. A very small bit of cover there going back too close to the warehouse. And seems like they're going to get a bit of a reset here.
Yeah, they do potentially can throw another grenade here. I would love to see Sauron actually stop the revive, actually go potentially for a grenade through into that building. Expect that revive after the smoke come out onto. I'm surprised they didn't actually hold off on that revive to do so and actually potentially wipe out 2 members from Incognito and stop their charge further in. Maybe they ran out of grenades being so early in this game, but it is going to be difficult with 4 members of Incognito behind them. There's realistically no way except for retreating back over to the bridge and trying to make a break for it. But decided Penetrate Institute can survive these fights. I want them to actually allow Benevidivici and decide, as you see now, Incognito to try fight each other and use that as an escape option.
Seems like now Benevidivici will be the team with the off angle to maybe pinch Incognito, but Penn Institute's pulling away now towards the east side of Hattin. Like, that being said, there's also more action happening over the southwest side of Paradise Resort. AMZ Lions actually wiped out the trio of Waggles there, and continuing their rotation path towards the north side of Boot Camp.
You see Wiggles, unfortunately, just a little bit of a dire game in the final match here, going down in last position, not where they want to be. You see Benevidivici now actually regrouping up, reforming against Incognito to actually now Penetrate Institute once again. Penetrate not done with the side of BBB. They want revenge for losing one of their teammates here against them, trying to take advantage of that 2-2 split that they had going on. But unfortunately, Grid being knocked makes it a 2 versus 4 situation, not maybe the option that they wanted to try take versus losing and winning this fight. Of course, Sauron and Godsu now with the revive. Sauron keeping Chris at bay for now. Potentially a grenade through the window of this building would spell disaster for Penetrate Institute.
This is going to be really interesting. This fight between these 3 teams here, the tides can change in just a split of a second. Here we have Incognito taking a bit of a split to overlook these compounds that both Penn Institute and Benevidivici are clumping on right now. Chris getting knocked by Griff. Griff also flushing Chris. Now we've got 1 full squad and 2 trios.
Benevidivici actually with the flank from Penetrate Institute, finding themselves sandwiched between 2 teams. It's now Penetrate Institute with the cards in their hand to make the plays against VBV, and with using Incognito as that second squad to really sandwich and put them in an uncomfortable position, and also keep an advantage of numbers against Incognito, being that 3 versus 2 on this side of Hattin, on that northern edge, because you see Vidma and Vesuvius, they are a little bit further away than what we would want them to be, to try be impactful as impossible in this early game. But around, as you mentioned, this central area of Sandhawk, because the zone is now going to centralize around the main island, you see the EOL are taking this fight versus AMZ, and you see these fights happening from 2 fronts.
EOL's actually fighting as well. They are suffering 2 knocks at the moment, but they also traded some knocks on the other team, which is going to be Zeno Tactics. But Osmeskis actually gonna be a goner now. Zip is pretty far away from the team, and they are being breached on this hillside by ZPX Fear, pushing in as a 4. Knowing where the enemies are, they can take this game away from EOL here. EOL Mentalis being incredibly low, with a teammate on the side to guarding those side angles. Zip is all the way downhill. But at the same time, Zen, the team that was fighting with EOL earlier, got the reset and now providing third-party fire from across the other side of the mountain.
I've heard of a BLT sandwich here, Tarzan, but I've definitely not heard of a triple V sandwich, and it looks like that's what's happening between Incognito and Penetrate Institute, but they won't go down right to fight. Incognito actually going through a team to take out Godsu here on the other end of the building, wanting these kills for themselves. This is an absolute ridiculous situation for these 3 teams to find themselves in. EOL also trading knocks there with ZPX, coming in from behind to be that upset. 3 teams around Empire of Lithuania right now. It's a much harder game number 3 than what they had last week. Much more difficult, with also now even Game Over joining the fray behind ZPX. Just like we saw in game number 1. Teams coming behind teams to try be that third party.
Zip is being flushed by Rebel, taking that opportunity to third-partying the fight is very smart. Seems like EOL is now in between 3 other teams, and that is not even over yet. As you said, Highland Wolf, Pen Game Over are also coming in from the south end to join this fight. But this cluster fight between these teams at Hartin are also just going mental right now. This is the time, since they are not in the middle of the zone, Penn Institute having actually a way out if they want to take it to pull away towards the east side, but seems like they are still trying to fight. They may be able to get some kill points here, but everyone would have burnt their resources by now. First aids, bandages, everyone count at the moment, and the blue zone is slowly coming in to put some damage to Incognito or those early games, so it's not going to be so painful. But if this continues, it can be very detrimental to all these 3 teams.
Yeah, you see actually Incognito get a crucial knock, get onto Godsu. Penn Institute there will have the strongest position based on, of course, just the way this zone is rotating. Both Triple V and side of Incognito are inside the blue zone, most notably being closer to safety are Veni Vidi Vici. They can just take a little bit step outside the building with that help from Incognito with a knock onto Godsu to try find Griff potentially, while Sauna is with that time, as it will do so. You see Plato come around the edge, they find one onto Griff. Griff will evidently fall out of this game, making it only 2 members for the side of Penetrate. On the opposite side, though, still Game Over putting work into ZPX, getting themselves a knock against them as well, as CJ falls down on the south end of this zone. Phase 3 now, and I think these teams on Hatton need to pull away. They need to try take a look at the rest of the map here and what's going on with these crazy fights and more in the center.
In the blink of an eye, Penn Institute has gone down to only the solo, which is Saren, and Incognito actually have more of the proximity towards the circle, as we see that phase 3 circle is going to central over Paradise Resort. So if they don't get like more decisive on the rotations here, maybe this is when the blue zone will do the most damage to these teams. Using that high ground just now on the roof, Griff, is very hard to know sometimes the difference between aggressive and disrespectful play. You can get a lot of angles, maybe a 360 aggressive angle, but then you also have a 360 defensive angle to worry about. And here we see VVV crossing the bridge now, trying to avoid that bridge side, and they are going for a swim.
On the opposite end, painting a little picture for us right now, we do have AMZ on a hill coming down towards Empire of Lithuania on the flat compounds there, just along the roadside. Around that junction, they did get one knocked. They did lose one, and now down to 2 members with Rebel up front. Aki on one side with Madra and Psycho to come down the hill to be that support for Rebel. On the other end, we did see ZPX pull away into actually the side of Misfits. Now, potentially, another Penetrate team away from one of game over as they lost that fight, but it doesn't look like it's going to end. Unfortunately, you see ZPX there are actually going to find a couple knocks here onto the side of Penetrate, by Penetrate game over, sorry, excuse me, here as ZPX lose potentially another. Kavesh almost going to go down, but they do lose one themselves. Fish and Menace have been knocked, and it will be Murdoch as well being knocked. ZPX have had enough of Penetrate teams in this game. They've faced 2 so far. They don't want to face the third. They definitely don't want to lose this fight, as they will just roll over this entire side of Misfits moving into the zone.
Deesnut trying to return some fire. Not one. Thirstaway, and not another one. That's now going to be a 1v1 between him and CJ, but CJ takes it.
CJ finishing off that kill inside the smoke, pops his head out, pops the gun, and pops the bullets into these nuts, and out Misfits go in the side of 10th position. Now there's 2 teams that have fallen, which is crazy to think the action has been going on. This zone will centralize around AMZ's comfort location here, Paradise Resort. They will be super happy with this drop. All the while, OTB may be making that flank rotation into Paradise Resort. They could do so, be an upset for these teams if it does centralize around this compound, taking prime positions around Paradise Resort to gatekeep teams coming from the south end. You can expect those teams will be coming from the south based on how this zone has been rotating.
Interesting thing that AMZ Lions doing here. Rebel falling back to be the spoiler, watching the remainder of EOL, but he's now trying to make a move while his team's having a bit of a linear formation heading towards the center. They are now grouping up because there's action between them and Xenotatic.
Yeah, Xenotatic, unfortunately, they lose one member here. A knock-up, but not a finish. That is crucial for him keeping all 4 players alive, as only the best now secure a little bit of positioning ahead just outside of the Paradise Resort area. Incognito also moving into zone alongside Benny Vidivici. Sound did actually make it out as well, so we didn't lose any teams so far from that hat-in fight, but Sauron could just die to the zone if they're not careful. They might need to use these medkits. They put themselves in the water. The position they want to be, unfortunately, might just fall down to this blue zone, putting us down to 8 teams.
AMZ Lions fighting Xenotatic here, suffering 2 knocks at the moment, but also taking at least one of the enemies with them. Is this a wipe? I think with that little bit of pressure from OTB, that's a wipe, and AMZ Lions can get that reset. OTB very comfortable around this very strong hill bits to the south of Paradise Resort here. Penetrate, game over, taking that south edge, trying to slowly sneak in. Snipes and CJ are still there. EOL opting in for a slightly later rotation, knowing they didn't have their numbers advantage. And Incognito wasn't giving Benny Vici a break there. They were able to cross and now enter the circle, but take 2 of VVV with them.
Yeah, you saw VVV. They're now gone to a split location here. One, Cesar going to Paradise Resort. Pish trying to dodge out the pin right now by Incognito outside of this zone. Sauron still keeping himself alive for now on that western front, but the action is all still on that south side. We mentioned, of course, the side of Xenomortals falling down with the help of ZPX and AMZ Lions. Unfortunately, now looks like Devious will be the last to fall, but not before PX will be eliminated. ZPX falling in 8th position. Devious makes it up another position, but between 2 teams might make it 6 teams. Now the zone shifts once again. Paradise Resort will be on the edge. It will be the buildings just outside of it for phase 5. And you see Sound actually now with the strongest position for Institute in this game.
With this number of players, only 18 in this circle, especially with FPP as well. Of course, like for the solo, it's going to be a bit harder to play. As I said, that DV is just being finished by the AMZ Lions team, and EOL actually slowly sneaking into the next bit of hard cover. And with that big loop, okay, that AMZ Lions is doing to basically sweep the whole of the south edge, I really like what they're trying to do here, and maybe they will be a bit of a cheeky surprise for EOL, not expecting other teams to be behind them, but yep, now that they've got themselves a spot, they really need to hold this down. Siren still making into the zone as the solo still got some meds remaining, abundance of bandages with 1 first aid. Maybe he can be the saving grace of Penn Institute for their placement points.
And they could take a kill here over Pish as well. Potentially Pish spies out Siren, which would be key for Veni Vidi Vici to have eyes for Tarzan, where more teams might be moving in alongside this western front. But Tarzan will need to move themselves out of Paradise Resort towards the edge, towards the front garden, and that will mean that it will be vulnerable to the full squad of Incognito, who have come out of Hatin fight the strongest with still all 4 members alive. Only the best going to pincer Tarzan. It will be realistically the end of Veni Vidi Vici as that zone centralizes outside of Paradise Resort into the compounds in the open kind of hilly areas here towards phase 6.
AMZ Lions losing Aki from the reverse gatekeep by EOL here, but Rebel pulling very close to maybe finish this remaining 2 members as we speak. The phase 6 circle being popped, 18 seconds to go. This fight will happen. If they don't finish earlier, teams will flow in like a flood to provide that pressure. Mental is very low here. And Rebels sitting very comfortably on the outside and giving that anchorage point, but Myro and Psycho actually has still some very strong spots with terrains that they can use to choke the other side.
Best.
Only the best.
Yeah.
Go for it, mate.
Look at them go. Yeah, I mean, look at only the best go right now. You see Mentalis with trying to take down Rebel. Has to, I think, Rebel retreat a little bit, realize that their team could be taken out by only the best. You see Psycho, now Madro knocked by a beautiful grenade from Chazo, with Mentalis finishing off that final kill. AMZ Lions just get gate kept along the edge of that hill. And beautiful positioning here by EOL, being on this rock face as cover. They won't be taken down by Incognito or OTB so easily because they have more cover than these other 2 teams. You see Sauron though, still alive, still has made it to 4th position. Very good work for the side of Institute, taking a slow game here with a final member.
4 team for OTB still, trio for Incognito, Solo, Siren. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 number of players here for the remaining 4 teams. Siren actually taking some damage, and that might be by the blue zone. And fight happening between Incognito and OTB right now. Andrex taking that angle, trying to find Vidma there, but not going to find it. And Professor being flushed, incredibly low health for Guard and Alexa there, surrounded by OTB there. Chazo doing his work with Clown and Knock as well. Vidma being basically the only remaining member here, providing that side angle though and doing work, exactly what he's supposed to do. Alexa bleeding out right now. Will Vidma be able to do that pickup in the blink of an eye? It's only going to be a 2v2, but will be found by EOL. The patient play has paid off. Knowing the compound, finding the angles has worked for them. EOL without the upper hand, actually, still holding that down very, very strong. And with the zone blessing them as well, the gods of PUBG has placed that chicken dinner in their hand with a 5-kill win.
Yeah, you see the side of Empire of Lithuania take those 5 kills. A very more tricky game here once again. Not so much the zone, but for the positioning, the way these teams have been kind of repositioning the slow fights. It actually allowed more teams to join into the action on both Hatin, being Incognito, joining Triple V, and also Penn Institute. But from the other side, which we saw actually side of Empire of Lithuania kind of dodge and dip around so many teams like AMZ, like Xenomortals, like ZPXP, like Game Over coming from behind them as well. Even OTB to a later extent towards the end of that game with AMZ coming over that hillside. It was the fact that they had that compound moving into the end. It was the fact that they were proactive, as you mentioned, going from hard cover to hard cover, using the dips to deny AMZ the chance to take them out while they were rotating. That allowed them to get that chicken dinner.
I'm feeling really sorry for AMZ Lions, actually. They've got such a strong performance tonight. It's only like a 43 people lobby, and they've got a crazy amount of kills. 12 kills is what they've got. That little split they could have been very strong. The problem with those rocks that Myro and Psycho was taking is that they are not close enough to pick up any audio cues from the high ground. Should they leave one guy high up for a bit of more of that scout work for the high ground there, they could have prevented those 2 knocks and then would have given Rebel the information as well to be backstabbed. But there we go. It's such a crazy game here, and with a lot of early action as well. Anything to add, Highland Wolf? How do you feel about tonight?
Honestly, these 3 nights has been three games, sorry, should I say, in this night has been interesting just from the zones for the first 2 games to the way that the repositioning was done in those fights on Sandhawk. I'm glad that we got to see these longer fights through all 3 games, so it had multiple teams coming in, because it meant we got to see more of positioning for a team fight from particularly the likes of AMZ in game number 1 and in game number 3, or as you mentioned, with the swoop down the south to clear out those teams. Unfortunately, just wasn't enough. They did get kind of too aggressive versus the side of Empire of Lithuania and got backstabbed by the enemies of Only the Best. I think, yeah, it shows the level that is improving in these scrims, and it shows that these games, night by night, week by week, league by league, that these teams are getting slowly and gradually better and more contesting, in poking out each other, trying to skill check each other as these games go on. Yeah.
I really encourage all of you viewers or those who play to go back to the VODs and just look at like these zones, right? If we have a few more teams in the lobby, a lot of those late rotations will be punished very, very heavily. I think with the likes of Penn Institute, right, Veni Vidi Vici and Incognito, they should suffer a lot more if we've just got a few more teams in the lobby tonight. But hopefully we'll have a bit of a busier lobby next week, and we will be back. Will you be here with me, Highland Wolf, next week? Would you still want to do this with me?
Will be. I hope so. I hope so. I will be anyways. Definitely planning on it next week.
Yep. So I think that's a wrap for tonight. So that is it from us as well. Looking forward to see you all again. I will be casting, if there's no further surprise, next Friday for our TPP Clan Wars, so do tune in for that. And also preparing to do some PMGC related content with a bit of a colored annotation, and Highland Wolf had like the privilege to have a bit of a glimpse of how that works. Do you want to say a few things about that, or should I just try to promote myself still?
I'll let you promote yourself. I mean, obviously go check again when this guy goes live on Twitter, Professor Tarzan. This guy will let you know exactly when he's going live with that content. It's pretty exciting stuff and deep level of analysis.
Okay, last but not least, following that, my team, Penn Institute, is still recruiting, so we could use more players who fit with the team, characterize and have met that standard when it comes to skills, and I will work, as I always work with all my players individually, to look through your VODs from your POV as well as through scrims to provide as much as I can. So it's still open, and if you do want to try and for a trial and just have a few games with us to see how it feels, feel free to do that. So that is my bit of promotion done, and thanks for tuning in tonight. This is me, Professor Tarzan here, your host of the night, as well as Highland Wolf. We hope to see you all again next week. Have a good night and a good week ahead.